It's evident that Apple is very careful about their products, constantly striving to improve them by patching up bugs, fixing performance issues, and other minor setbacks in their operating systems. Despite this, bugs that either steal your data, damage your SSD, or mess with the Mac's charging system often show up, especially recently. For this reason, you should keep your macOS to the latest version to avoid risks of losing your data, or don't update so as not to mess up the charging process. As usual, it's not that simple. Today we're gonna be talking about bugs that in theory can kill your computer. In 2020, Apple released a new generation of laptops with a completely new M1 chip. Despite the fact that the chips turned out to be terrific, it wasn't without some disappointments. Remember when everyone complained that their SSDs literally burn out? My new MacBook is only a month old and the SSD capacity is already 99 or even 98%. Some encouraged new users to buy a Mac with at least 500 GB SSD, others with 16 GB unified memory, because with this configuration your Mac consumes less swap memory, which means less data has to be recorded and kept on your built-in SSD drive when using swap. These tips are hardly relevant now. Besides, unfortunately, this was a system bug from macOS Big Sur, and since the release of the 11.4 version, this bug seems to have been fixed. The real problem was that Apple didn't recognize this bug as a warranty case, referring to the fact that calculating SSD capacity is a complicated process and it's not us who screwed up, but the programs confuse gigabytes with terabytes, and in short, leave us alone. It's not our fault. But what about people who've already used up their SSDs? Leave a hateful review on their website, I guess. And despite the fact that I still recommend getting a Mac with at least 500 GB SSD, at the very least, because 250 GB is extremely little, it's honestly time to start releasing laptops from a 500 GB SSD. So if you're planning to get a new MacBook, I strongly recommend that you keep updating its OS as well. And as always, if you haven't yet updated your software to the latest version, Monterey, because Ventura has not yet been released, I once again advise you to do this. If anything, let it be for the bug that was found on the Safari 15, which not only keeps track of the websites you visited, but is also able to identify your Google account. All this entails data leakage. Some handyman even made a website where you can check for this vulnerability in your browser called IndexedDB. And yes, Apple has already fixed this defect. Still, it's a good idea to keep your macOS up to date. Having said that, sometimes updating can be tricky. What do I mean by that? This may sound contradictory, but updating to a new version is not always safe. But before I tell you why, a quick word from our sponsor that will help you keep your PDF files safe. PDF Element from Wondershare is a powerful PDF tool that allows you to produce great-looking PDF documents and forms quickly, affordably, and securely. With this application, you can open, save, print, and mark up PDFs, add, remove, move, resize, and rotate any graphical element within your PDF. Secure your PDFs with password protection, unlock text within images using OCR, and many other useful features. One of my favorites are annotation and edit features, because instead of converting a PDF file into a docx file, I can correct my screenplays and add notes right inside this app. To edit a text, just press on this text icon and double-click a text you want to correct. To apply changes, just press Enter, and that's it. And you can do the same thing with photos and links. You get the ability to replace photos, crop, and even extract them. And in the markup section, you get a bunch of tools for marking your text and adding comments. The comments will appear in the left panel where you can manage and correct them. We have a team working on this content, so this is very convenient for our process. This is definitely one of the best tools I've used for working with PDF documents. It has an intuitive interface, a beautiful modern design, and despite the large number of features, it looks very neat. If you want to learn more about PDF Element, just click the link in the description below. And thank you Wondershare for sponsoring this portion of the video. As a rule, immediately after the release of a new version, there may be additional new bugs and flaws in the new OS. For example, for those users who still use Big Sur, Apple released an update recently, 11.6.7, which was supposed to patch some bugs and system vulnerabilities, but at the same time, the update brought about a good number of new bugs. And if you follow my channel, you already know that I have Ventura installed on my Air, and my M1 Pro is still on Monterey, so I can check this update for myself myself, but I see some guys on the internet complain that, for example, Apple News in Big Sur 11.6.7 overloads the system so much that it becomes difficult to use the Mac and it can freeze until it's restarted. At the same time, M1 MacBook Pro owners are complaining about a fast user switching bug that doesn't let them close the loading screen. This leaves the device unusable until the lid is closed and reopened, or Alt-Command-Q is used, or the Power Touch ID button is pressed. To fix the issue, users need to disable fast user switching in the settings, but that's not all. If you own a 2013 MacBook Pro and a mid-2014 MacBook Pro, don't rush to update, because this update can turn your Mac into a vegetable and it won't start. No way it's gonna happen, I will update anyway, you could say, but let me tell you about another major bug or setback that was found in macOS Mojave. Software developer for macOS and iOS Jeff Johnson stated that despite the blocked access to system folders by default, because only a few system applications have the right to access their contents, he managed to bypass this restriction, thus allowing applications to read the contents of these folders without receiving any permissions from the user or the system. Do you want your browser history to leak to the network? Then do not update to the new macOS immediately. And according to his statements, even Apple-approved applications could use this oversight in the system and access the browser history without any problems. But there's also good news in all this. Fortunately, this bug was found a few days after the release of macOS Mojave. It was fixed extremely quickly, not allowing a huge number of intruders to use it. Well, those who missed the very first version of macOS simply didn't find this hole in the operating system and bypassed it. And after that, will you still update immediately? Leave it to me. Apple also couldn't go without bugs with the release of macOS Monterey, but all of them were fixed one way or another. But before the release of version 12.4, Apple gifted some users a broken charger. This applies to the 16-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 Pro on board. For some users, the Mac won't charge via USB-C port. Here is how the user who encountered this flaw described the problem. After upgrading to 12.4, my 2021 16-inch MacBook Pro with M1 Pro now doesn't charge from any USB-C ports. My usual USB-C chargers stopped working and the MBP doesn't make a beep or indicate any reaction to the charger. I've tried another charger and cable that I know work. It will charge from the 140-watt supply charger, but not from USB-C. The solution to this problem was not another fix from Apple, but a reply from another user on the forum. And if you happen to encounter a similar issue, enter this command in the terminal and then restart your computer. This command should help. Continuing the topic of the controversial macOS Monterey, soon after its release, many users reported a memory leak issue after updating to macOS 12. This is an error that occurs when some apps consume an abnormally large amount of RAM or unified memory. It seems, however, that this problem has not been resolved even after the latest macOS 12.4 update, as new user reports are still coming in where the screenshots clearly show that even the most harmless software can brutally use your computer's hardware. By the way, it is likely that this bug may cause the same problem that came up after the M1 release and macOS Big Sur, when the SSD simply could not cope with the amount of data written to it, and as a result, the health of your SSD suffered. In fact, a guy from our team faced this same problem, only now the overload was not affecting the memory, but the processor, and by the way, the action that overloaded the CPU was called crash report and would appear after closing OBS. And if he hadn't installed a utility tool for monitoring the component's temperatures, most likely his MacBook would now be in a way worse condition than it is. And if you're wondering, reinstalling the program didn't help him, he had to reset his MacBook to factory settings. Only then did the bug disappear from his Mac. So always be careful. Sometimes certain actions can be swarmed with something secretly evil. Who knows, maybe it was a virus, but don't forget that there are processes that consume memory. So if your computer suddenly starts to slow down or even freezes, open task monitoring on your Mac and stop harmful processes urgently. Not a bug, but a feature. You could tell me about this next point, but I still don't understand why Apple didn't fix one extremely important thing in macOS. This is once again related to hard drives, to be more specific, external drives. If you have a Mac or you have friends who do, you must have heard that you need to turn off your external drive correctly. But what does that mean? Well, open the Finder window. On the left, you can see external storage and click extract. And after a few seconds, you can take out the USB connector from your computer. Otherwise, you may get a warning message saying that the SSD needs to be turned off correctly, or else the data on your external drive will get damaged. And yes, in Windows, starting from version 10, you can turn off any SSD raw without removing them from the system, while we, the owners of groundbreaking devices from Apple, need to poke around the system like it's the prehistoric times. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it happens to me that turning off an external SSD won't go through the first time. Sometimes an error screen appears or a message stating that the SSD is currently busy with something, and no matter what I try to disable, this window still appears. I read that rebooting might help, but let's be honest, I don't want to reboot my laptop just to take out a memory card or an external drive. And many will sacrifice their data for the sake of convenience. Fortunately, I still managed to keep my data, but besides data loss, in case of an incorrect shutdown, I have to go into disk utility, run first aid, and wait for my macOS to restore the drive. Basically, a pain in the ass. Apple, please give us a way to turn off drives just by removing the cable. It's greatly missed. And now I present you a brief instruction on how to update your Mac so that it stays alive after the update. There are only 2 tips here. One of which is do not update immediately, but instead read the reviews of users who've already updated it, or watch videos from this channel for a more comprehensive summary. The second tip, definitely make a backup copy. Do that not just to protect yourself from killing your Mac, but also to give yourself the opportunity to go back to the previous version of the OS if you didn't like the new one for whatever reason. Do not disregard this advice because losing a working computer is much less pleasant than buying a new one. In the meantime, if you like this one, then click on this one and see you in the next one.